So, good morning, Dudu. It's good to see you. Shall we begin with a brief period of worship?
Thank you.
So, Dudu, thank you for agreeing to speak to us today. And I'm going to ask you some questions and we'll hear your responses. So, the first question is, how do we cherish one another?
And how do we cherish one another? I think we cherish one another by recognizing that we belong to each other. And part of our responsibility as we belong to each other is honoring the divine in the other and knowing that we are because the other person is. We came from people and we live amongst people. And when we leave this world, we will live from people, accompanied by people. So cherishing one another is simply for me finding that of God in the other person and reaching for that of God. I know in some people you may find it deeply embedded and hard to reach, but the knowledge that it is there and with patience and ability to recognize that it is there, you assist even the other person to find it in themselves and bring it to the fore.
Thank you. And then moving on to the next question, could you name one thing that you could contribute to the community?
One thing that I would contribute to the community is compassion laced with empathy. I've learned and realized that many people, many of us carry a lot of woundedness. And we've never really had time to deal with it properly. And I think the whole thing of men don't cry, boys don't cry, and if you cry, it's like you are weak and not coping with life, makes us go into the world with wounds and never really dealing with them. We have to put on this brave front that I'm coping, even if I'm not coping. And that is what I think in communities we need to bring in our own families and in our meetings for worship, because that's where it's needed. You're just expected to run with it. Don't be a sissy, don't be weak. And yet this is who you are, you know, at this time, at this moment. Mm.
Thank you, Dudu. And could you say a bit about what new ways we can find to work together?
New ways. I don't know whether there are new ways, Michael. I think they're just old ways that have been there, maybe forgotten, and maybe lost because we're busy with other things. You know, there's this African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child, and we are all children coming from villages. And yes, maybe now the village is global, hence we're meeting here as a world plenary meeting, but it is still a village. And the spirit of Ubuntu resides in all of us in the village. At this moment, I'm remembering that I grew up in a real rural village in KZ in KwaZulu Natal, where we knew everybody in the village. Fear was not part of it. And we fetched water from the same well. And this well was, there was no security person standing there and saying, don't spoil it. We knew, we treated it with respect. You get in there, you get your water, you fill it up. And all the girls, we knew time to go and fetch water. So as village girls, we go to the well to get. And the boys who were heading cattle made sure that the cattle didn't go and, you know, and spoil the well and trample in through the well. And that just made us one. And then some of the people, like my grandfather, had land, and those who didn't have land, they had energy and their enthusiasm. They came and helped those who had land. And when it was time for weeding and hoeing, we all went in there. There would be these work parties. We know this Saturday we're going to Kwamgabi or we're going to Kwamnwango, you know. But we go there with enthusiasm, and they would work and do the fields. They would bring food in a communal basin, you know, one big basin where we all sat around. You scoop with your right hand and you put it in your left hand and put it in your mouth, because you were part of this. There were no plates that you had to eat individually. And my grandmother, who was blind, but I think she was just differently sighted, because one of the things that she insisted that we did, not to dish out all the food from the pots in the evening. She would say, what are you going to give the stranger who's going to come here at night? Are you going to start making the fire? And making a fire, starting a fire was a whole, you know, big issue. So the food had always to be there. And believe it or not, that has stayed with me. We cook in the same pots that we used to cook in when there were still six of us, and now we're only two. For the stranger that may never come, but sometimes there's a gentleman who'd come at the door begging and saying, "Oh, Mama, I need some tea." And I'll say, "Uh-huh, there is the stranger." And there will be food available for him. I know sometimes he abuses my kindness, but it's part of being a member of the village, you know. And for me, if we just find courage to go back to those basics, you know, back to basics, that I am because you are. You know, I don't know what you're bringing, but I embrace whatever you're bringing. Your hurts, your joys, your anxieties, whatever. You don't have to unpack and tell me, but I know these things we carry with ourselves in the background.
Thank you, Dudu. Thank you. And now we can move on to the final question, which is asking, are you sensitive to one another's needs and to God's promptings? So are you sensitive to God's promptings and other people's needs?
Yeah, Michael, that's a very big one. And I think as friends and as Christians and members of communities, we know that we need to love one another as we love ourselves. That's one of the 10 commandments, I think. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. We need to find ways of forgiving one another if we want to be forgiven. The Lord's Prayer says it all, and we know it, we say it. And we need to find the humility and the honesty required that we respond to God's promptings because they're always there. We call it the little small voice. Sometimes it will be stopping you from going wherever, but it is there. It is there. It is constantly directing us. And right now, I've been thinking about quite a lot about the World Plenary and looking at the community I live in. There's a lot of poverty, homelessness, and people are out of work and so on. Mother Teresa said, you can't feed all the hungry people in the world, but you can feed one. When I walk into my local supermarket mall, sometimes there are those boerewors rolls that they sell, and there are always these guys who are begging, who are sitting at the entrances. I'll just buy two and a bottle of water and say, I may not provide for his 3 meals, but this will affirm and just give him something for him to sustain him to carry on. And so there are lots of opportunities like that. But the one that is coming very strongly to me, it has been coming over the few weeks, is what can we do as a community coming to South Africa to the World Plenary in the spirit of Ubuntu? Is can you just pack as one person to pack one extra item of clothing, especially something that is warm, because these people sleep under bridges. Sometimes I would buy coffee, but I'm feeding them just for that moment. But for this event that is coming, the prompting that I felt strongly, Michael, and I'm hoping friends can buy into it, that can you put in an extra, you know, t-shirt or a jersey or a pair of pants, whatever item that you are willing to donate. In Johannesburg, we have one friend who is working with the Methodists in a program of feeding the homeless people. The Methodists have been doing this, for so many years. I think maybe it's over 5 years that Sam has. They were disturbed with COVID, but some of the members in the meeting have gone with this friend to go and actually experience distributing and seeing these people face to face, because sometimes these people become faceless. You just know, oh, they're homeless people. Somewhere there the government must take care. But we are part of that village. And if I can bring in an extra item, we have all of us some things that we haven't worn for the last 2, 3 years. We're not likely to wear, perhaps. Can you just pack one and go and donate it? This is the prompting I'm feeling, and I'm hoping friends will receive it with warmth and acceptance that it's just what I'm feeling. The program is called Papalo Yabatu. It's a Sutu, I don't know, but Yabatu are people, and we're here in the spirit of Abantu, Batu, Ubuntu. And that's one way that we could contribute to this community as members of the global community. Anyway, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Dudu. Thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts and ideas with us today.
And thank you for the opportunity. This has been good for me to actually reflect and realize that Ubuntu, sometimes we see it as happening outside there, even in our families. How many couples actually speak and greet one another and are forgiving? And, it's good when we think globally, but we need to act locally. Charity begins at home. You know, it could be our children being wayward, it could be our spouses. I mean, having been married to one guy for 60 years, he's no longer the same guy I met, way back then. But yeah, there's that of God in him. He's part of the community, he's part of the family that I'm in. And I need to embrace him. He's more forgetful. I'm also forgetful. But the tolerance, the acceptance, the love, the embracing, that is the spirit, as far as I can think and share. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dudu.